Snow fell softly over the city, blanketing the streets in white. Through the towering glass windows of his penthouse office, Alexander Reed, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, stared out at the empty skyline. It was Christmas Eve, but instead of laughter or warmth, his office echoed only with a deafening silence. The city lights glittered below him like a sea of stars, mocking the emptiness in his chest. He had everything money could buy: private jets, a mansion by the lake, and a name that made headlines, but tonight none of it mattered. His parents had passed away years ago, and his ex-fiancée had walked away the moment she realized his heart was buried beneath board meetings and contracts. For years, Alexander had believed that love was a distraction, that emotions were liabilities. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, he realized how wrong he'd been. He was alone, completely, painfully alone. Just as he was about to shut off his office lights, a small, tentative knock echoed on his door. He frowned. Who would possibly be here this late, especially on Christmas Eve? When he opened the door, there was no one there. Only a small red envelope lay on the floor, slightly damp from melted snow. The handwriting on it was crooked and childish, the words written in a bright green crayon. To Mr. CEO Santa, Alexander almost smiled at the absurdity of it. He picked up the envelope and walked back to his desk, curiosity getting the better of him. Inside were 3 folded pieces of paper, each written in a different colored crayon. The first one began, "Dear Mr. CEO Santa, we don't want toys this year. We just want Mommy to smile again. She cries when she thinks we're asleep. Thinks she misses Daddy. Could you make her happy, please? Love, Lily." His breath caught. He unfolded the second letter. "Hi, Santa. CEO, Mommy works too much. She never buys anything for herself. Not even a warm coat. We saw her looking at one in a store, but she said, 'It's okay, maybe next year. Please give her something nice.' From Leela." And the last one was the simplest, yet it hit him the hardest. "Dear Santa, we wish we had a Christmas tree like other kids. Mommy says it's okay, we don't, but we know she's sad. We'll leave cookies for you if you visit us. Love, Lucy." For the first time in years, Alexander felt something tighten in his throat. He sat back in his chair, the weight of $100 million deal suddenly feeling lighter than these 3 pieces of paper. He stared at the innocent, looping handwriting. There was no address on the envelope, just a small logo in the corner from Reed Enterprises' charity event 2 weeks ago. He remembered now. A young woman with tired but kind eyes had volunteered that night, helping with the food drive. She had 3 little girls with her triplets. Her name was Hannah Carter. Without a second thought, Alexander called his assistant, who sounded half asleep when she answered the phone. "Find out where Hannah Carter lives," he ordered softly, his voice unusually gentle, "and send a driver. I'll go myself." Within the hour, Alexander was standing in front of a small, rundown apartment building on the edge of the city. The cold bit at his face as he carried a few hastily wrapped boxes and a tiny Christmas tree he'd managed to find at an all-night store. He took a deep breath and knocked. The door opened just a crack and 3 identical pairs of big brown eyes peeked out. "Mommy, it's Santa," one of them whispered in a hushed, excited voice. Hannah appeared behind them, wearing an oversized sweater, her face a mask of disbelief. "Mr. Reed?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" Xander managed an awkward smile. I got a letter addressed to Mr. CEO Santa. I thought I'd better deliver a few gifts in person." For a moment, a heavy silence filled the tiny apartment. Then, it was broken by screams of pure joy as the triplets started bouncing around the living room. Alexander brought in the gifts and set up the small Christmas tree. Hannah tried to protest, her words catching in her throat, but her tears gave her away. She covered her mouth, shaking her head. "You didn't have to do this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I did," he said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. "Because someone reminded me what Christmas really means." That night, the little apartment came alive. The girls sang carols completely off-key, and Alexander found himself laughing a real, genuine laugh that reached his eyes for the first time in years. They decorated the tree with handmade paper stars and bits of ribbon. And when one of the girls handed him a cookie shaped like a lopsided snowman, he realized he'd never felt more at home. Later, After the girls had finally fallen asleep under the twinkling lights of their new tree, Hannah sat beside him, handing him a mug of hot cocoa. "I'm so sorry about the letters," she said softly, her gaze fixed on the steam rising from her cup. "They still believe in magic." "I didn't have the heart to tell them that Santa doesn't." "Don't," Alexander interrupted gently, his voice warm. "Maybe Santa doesn't always come in a red suit. Maybe sometimes he just shows up a little late." She looked up and smiled, then a tired but beautiful smile that lit up her entire face. "You're not what I expected," she whispered. "Neither are you," he replied, his own voice thick with an unfamiliar emotion. "You've given more love in this tiny apartment than I've seen in all my mansions combined." Days turned into weeks. Alexander found himself making excuses to visit again, to bring groceries, to fix a leaky faucet he'd noticed, or to help the girls with a school project. Each time he visited, Hannah protested a little less. And each time, the laughter in the small apartment grew louder. By spring, the man who once lived only for business found himself sitting on the floor, coloring with crayons, his expensive suit jacket tossed carelessly aside. The triplets had officially claimed him as their CEO Santa, and Hannah had long stopped trying to correct them. He was becoming a part of their world, and more surprisingly, they were becoming his. A year later, on Christmas Eve once more, Alexander stood in that same apartment building, only now it wasn't so small anymore. He'd helped Hannah and the girls move into a cozy house near the city park. Snow fell softly outside as the triplets danced around a big, beautiful new tree, their giggles filling the air. Hannah turned to hand him a cup of cocoa, just as she had a year ago. But this time, he took her hand instead. "Merry Christmas, Hannah," he said softly, his gaze full of a warmth she'd come to know so well. "Last year you gave me something no one else ever could." She smiled, her eyes glistening under the warm lights of the tree. "And what's that?" she asked. "Family," he whispered, his voice full of gratitude. "You gave me family." That night, as laughter filled the warm, glowing room, Alexander realized something profound. Love doesn't need wealth, status, or power. It just needs a heart willing to open. And sometimes it takes 3 little girls armed with crayons and unwavering faith to remind a lonely man of that simple, beautiful truth. The greatest gifts don't come wrapped in ribbons. They come in the form of people who teach us how to love again. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like, and consider subscribing to our channel for more uplifting content. We'll see you in the next video.